They gave me a shot of Jack Daniels, and I was like, this is disgusting, but I didn't stop. I just kept taking shots. And I blacked out and I puked, and the cops came, and it was horrible. And the next day on the bus, I threw up, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to do it again. But I did. I kept drinking. And I think for me, and for many alcoholics, the whole thing is when you start, you can't stop, and you can't stop starting. I always started again, even though I didn't want to.
Wow, anyone who's ever struggled with alcoholism knows exactly what she's talking about there. That's Kyra deGruy Kennedy. Now, she's a lot of things here in Colorado. She's a self-described political agitator. She's a progressive policy leader who's had her hands in crafting legislation around abortion and public education. And she's someone who's in recovery from drug addiction and alcoholism. And she's a sexual assault survivor. And she's going to join me to talk all about that today. Talk about her recovery, why she's fed up with the Democratic Party, and what special, unique gift she's giving to her daughter. All that and much more with Kyra deGruy Kennedy on this week's VV's BFB. You are from the South, Southern Belle.
Yeah.
Were you a Southern Belle?
Well, we left when I was early enough that I think I was young enough. I was 9 when we moved to Colorado. I've got a lot of family there still. But I don't know that I got all the way jumped into the cult of the Southern Belle.
Well, I don't hear an accent, first of all.
Yeah, I got rid of it pretty quick. When I drank, it came out.
Yeah.
And when I'm in the South, it comes out. But yeah, I don't have much now.
I love a Southern accent.
It's beautiful.
I think it's beautiful. It's sexy as hell.
Yes.
Like, give me a guy with a drawl and I'm gushing.
Yes.
He could be like some, shirtless hick who's like,
just a MAGA loving, gun-toting.
Racist. Ooh, he's cute.
Yeah, I love that accent and your cowboy hat. Hey. That's a problem. But British accents are the same for me, right? So it's just an accent.
And in the South is such a great place. Like, but it has its issues, obviously historically or whatever. What do you remember much of growing up back then? I mean, because you left, you're so young.
Yeah, I remember. I remember a lot. And again, one of my sisters still lives down there with her family. So I visit a lot.
Yeah.
I think I grew up in a very religious family, and my grandmother was Southern Baptist, so. Very religious.
Yeah.
And I went to an Episcopal school when I was there. So, which is like the more progressive of the Christian religions, but we were in a private Christian school. We did a lot of church. And it's interesting. It's, we were talking before we started about this sort of what's interesting about Christianity in this moment. And I think in a place where racism is so in your face, it's in your face in a way that's different than it's in your face in Colorado. It was interesting to see how much, how little we talked about the teachings of Jesus in the lens of the moment.
Interesting.
And so, I remember that. And I remember, when I got my own education here about equity, how it didn't fit with the experience I had as a kid in a place where it should have been louder, if that makes sense.
I think people lose sight of, look, I would never claim to be a Christian, but there are some beautiful things, I think, about the teachings of Jesus Christ. I just think there are beautiful things in the Bible.
Yes.
But it blows my mind when the people who espouse their Christianity more so than others are the ones least inclined to be guided by his fucking teachings.
Yes.
It drives me crazy.
Yes, me too.
And so you got that.
Not all Christians, right?
Of course,
there are lots that are doing really wonderful things. I have a godmother in the South who's fighting the fight every day and also is a deacon, right? So there are certainly people who are awake, but there are a lot who aren't.
Yeah, and they're beautiful. The thing that I've always kind of taken pride in, Kyra, and is I really try and get along with everyone, and I really try and see the goodness in everyone. And I think most people out there, regardless of what little bubbles they're a part of, have a lot of good in them.
Yes.
Right? In the South, I've met amazing Christians, and I met some who aren't so amazing,
Yeah.
But it's just like life, You've probably met some. You're a Democrat. I'm an independent. You're a Democrat.
I've disaffiliated.
You have. Why?
Yes.
Because why?
Well, this party just doesn't represent my values right now.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm unaffiliated actually for the
What
first
are those
time.
values?
It's funny. Like I'm branded as a radical, which is fine. But I think like what's funny about that to me is that I believe that healthcare and quality education and housing and healthy food access and these things are basic human rights that every person should get, and that we should be talking loudly and often about racism and building an anti-racist society where people have like equity across the board. And, these things that to me feel like not that radical are not what the Democratic Party is standing for right now. So
you bailed.
I bailed. They're not my people.
Well, can you work within the party to try and change, or you've already tried that and that's why you bailed?
It's a good question. I think, we're house divided on this. My husband is, we have lots of heated and non-heated conversation about
Chris
this.
Kennedy, former Colorado state representative.
Yes. Yep. And is like just my favorite person on the whole planet. I love him so much. He's so wonderful. He's such a unicorn. And he's fighting the fight within the party, and he's going to keep doing that. And I think there's a place for that. There's like this lens, this reform and beyond reform lens. Are you familiar with this already?
No.
So there's a book called Hospicing Modernity, which everyone should read. It's so amazing. Changed my life. And Vanessa, who wrote the book, talks about soft reform, radical reform, and beyond reform. And the soft reform and radical reform both live in the space of how do we change the systems that we currently have to work better for people? How do we create equity within these systems? Which is a place that I've spent my whole career. I've spent an entire career in policy change. And we've made some really big progress for people, right? So like it's certainly really important. And in this moment where people are losing access to all of the social care systems, those reforms are incredibly important. And the systems themselves, when rooted in extractive capitalism, when rooted in a place where like the purpose is actually to make money and not to help people, or the purpose is to, I started my career in healthcare, health policy. And it's like, that's one of the most convoluted of the systems because there's so many different people making money on so many different aspects of it, and et cetera. So we've got all these systems that are, the criminal penalty system is similar. It's like we've set them up in order to not actually help the person that's being treated within the system. And so this beyond reform space is really around how do we imagine what comes next? How do we intentionally spend time thinking through what's the kind of society we actually believe we should be living in together? And what is that rooted in? And what does it look like to build communities of care and to do work with truly neighbors and the people who are in your small pods and build out an infrastructure that creates a system, in quotes, that actually helps people instead of that's intended to make corporations billions of dollars. And so I think I'm sort of threading that line right now. And what I'm seeing with the Democratic Party is firmly going back. How do we restore? After Trump, what do we do to get back to what we previously believed in? And like I supported Kamala Harris. I wish that she had won. And also, she won't talk about genocide. We've got pretty big issues within the party that just felt to me like it's a fight for someone else. I'm meant for a different fight right now.
How do you though jive that, Kyra, though? I mean, Mark Maron, who I love, said it best. Like, as an independent, the Republican Party I shouldn't say the Republican Party. The far right is dangerous, right? Mm-hmm. But the left is annoying. Mm-hmm. And Mark Maron said it best that the left has annoyed people into fascism.
Yes, totally.
He said, no, like,
Yes.
it's like, do you really have to wag your finger at everything that people do and tell them how to speak and to scold them over this and that?
Yes.
Like that, I don't think we have really measured quite how much that has annoyed the hell out of people
Yes.
to the point where they're comfortable with Trump.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
How do you deal with it?
So annoying.
Right.
And so elitist, right? It's like we're not even using language that normal human beings can understand. And that it's like so annoying.
Oh my God. I grew up poor.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay to say, this kid is poor.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, what do we use? Hunger deprived or something? Like, I was fucking poor.
Yeah. Had trouble getting food on the table. We were hungry. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. It really is. And I think like part of my take here, and this isn't necessarily the right take, it's just I have my own opinions, is that we have a two-party system that makes it impossible to make progress. And so if what we stick with is a two-party system, and that both of those parties are deeply indebted to corporate interest, we're just not going to make that the kind of progress that we actually need, and we're not going to be talking about the right things. Like, we're not talking about hungry people. We're talking about lots of other crazy scandals and like our minds are not on the right focus because we don't have an infrastructure that holds the right focus.
Yeah. I mean, we pay a lot of attention to what happens at a Coldplay concert.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's, and if Trump wants to rename the Washington football team,
Yes.
the media, I always picture that scene from Airplane where all the reporters run into the telephone booths to break a scoop, and then the telephone booths fall over because they're all charging it at the same time. Like, oh, Trump talked about the Redskins.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, wait a second. It's, what about the kid who can't eat now because of these Medicaid cuts or can't get health care now, and then the SNAP cuts? I just think that it's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Yes. And it is, I think if we're paying attention, it is, for me at least, I'm redefining what hope needs to look like. Like I remember fondly the 2008 Barack Obama hope. The like, oh, we have hope. And I think right now we don't have that kind of hope. Even if the country turns itself around, like the climate itself can't sustain the way that we're living, right? So like we're in a moment right now where I think we really have to be thoughtful about what we're hoping for and how we're dreaming and how we're lifting each other up and how we're engaging with the moment, because we have to. We need everybody to be engaging with the moment, but it's not that we need everybody to be listening to the news and following the scandals and living in despair.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find the other option.
Yeah. Boy, that hope it's a 4-letter word, first of all. And it's and it's so important, like in terms of, especially for folks like me and you, Kyra. And believe it or not, this is not a political podcast. This is a recovery podcast, but we're going to talk about whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
But we are going to talk
You're in
about
charge.
We're definitely going to talk about recovery.
Yes.
But like, how it's so important to take care of ourselves right now more than ever. Like it can be so hard and it can be so deflating, and most of these things are outside of our control. I say the serenity prayer a million times a day. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. That is a beautiful prayer. And I have to abide by it because there are so many things outside of our control. But you and I have the double duty of not only not going crazy over what's happening in the world around us, but also not reaching for the liquor cabinet.
Yes.
Or the pipe.
Yes.
And that can be really hard.
Yes.
Yeah. Because there's that old memory of, wow, I remember what this was like. I drank just the other day I was at this place and they had this really nice selection of non-alcoholic drinks, and one of them was a non-alcoholic sparkling wine. I'm like, that sounds interesting. It was delicious. I'm like, oh, this is so good. But I swear to God, I had one of those things and I felt like a little buzzy. And I'm like outside in downtown Denver in the middle of the day, random weekday. I used to love day drinking.
Oh, yes.
Day drinking was my favorite thing.
Yes.
And I got seriously triggered.
Yeah, I bet.
Whatever those little bubbly things did to me sparked something. It triggered something where those memories of, oh, I remember being at this bar at 10 in the morning and laughing with these regulars. And then we go score some blow and then we do this and like, oh, that I should do that right now.
Yes. Yes.
And like, how do we, so taking care of ourselves is so important.
It is. And I think we have to, at least for me, maybe I shouldn't say we, but I've had to redefine what that means. Like, there are practices that I do every day that I have to do because otherwise I lose my fucking mind. I'm like, and I'm a mom to a toddler. So like, I have to not lose my mind, right? So like, there are things I have to do every day.
Yeah, you get a lot.
But I think one of the things that has been hitting me recently is that even though I have a lot of people in my community, there's a lot of people around us and a lot of people who I love, there's a different level of community that's needed in this moment. And it's a different kind of community, I think. Like, when I first got sober, which was, I'm assuming you'll ask me some questions about my whole recovery.
Yeah,
so
we're gonna go back to that.
I don't have to dig into it right now. When I first got sober, for good, I had a lot of relapses for a lot of years. I was constantly at AA meetings. My whole community was AA. It was like everyone around me all the time was AA, and I was surrounded by people all the time. And I needed that at the time, right? Like, I needed to go to meetings every day, and I needed my friends to all be in recovery. And I desperately needed that. And right now, that is not the case. I'm not constantly surrounded by people. Most of our friends are friends that have kids that are the same age as my kid. And so we don't necessarily have the same values, and we're not necessarily thinking about the same things. And I've got a number of friends who I've had a lot of years who I'm still close with. But I think that like one of my longings recently, in this moment where I have felt depressed. I have been struggling. Like, the world is hard right now. It is, even without addiction. I have this longing for the kinds of conversation that we're beginning to have here. Like, what is it that we want to be building? How does that need to look? And then how do we support one another in doing that? And how do we really build not just friendship, but community that withstands the collapses that are here and that are coming. And I think that's part of the self-care that we actually all desperately need right now. And yet it's so hard to even exist that we instead watch TV, or we tune out, or we get high, we whatever. It's because it's so fucking hard.
You're so smart. That just nails it right on the head. My gosh. Well, let's talk about your recovery journey because, you obviously left the South when you were a little girl. You moved to Colorado?
With my family.
And whereabouts?
Castle Rock.
So when did, down at Castle Rock, every time someone says Castle Rock, I always want to sing Fraggle Rock.
You should.
It's a whole other show. We're going to do a whole other show on that. What was the childhood like? Because I know you and I have talked before about you really started reaching for the bottle at a pretty early age.
Yeah.
What was going on back then?
Yeah. It's funny. I have parents who were medical providers, and my mom was a therapist when I was growing up. My dad was a family doc, and I was the youngest of 4 kids, and they were, my parents are great. We're still really close, and so it's funny. Like, there were a lot of years where I kind of didn't know what the fuck. I'm like, how did this happen? And I think it took a lot of years of recovery and a lot of understanding my ego and a willingness to speak to what's true underneath what I'm protecting Does that make sense? It's like I always sort of had this, here's how I want the world to see me. And I had to be able to deconstruct that to be able to really get down to what led to starting to use. And I think for me, I was just always desperate to be seen. I was like, I was always so much. I've always been this much. It's like intense when I see my daughter is like so much like me, and it's horrifying. I'm like, oh fuck, like you're in for it, because it's like I needed so much attention and to be loved and to be seen and to feel understood, and I never did. And I felt so much. And I think that that's true of a lot of alcoholics. You know, I've sponsored a lot of women over the years, and it's not true of everyone, but most, I would say the majority of the women I've worked with felt so much. And when they started using, that felt more manageable. And I think that was my experience. You know, the first time I drank, I was desperate to be liked. I was at a party with my friend's older sibling and their friends, and I desperately wanted to be liked and I wanted to be cool. I was the youngest of four, as I mentioned, so like none of my siblings thought I was cool.
And how old were you back then?
I was in elementary school. I was probably 11, maybe.
Okay.
10 or 11. And they gave me a shot of Jack Daniels, and I was like, this is disgusting, but I didn't stop. I just kept taking shots. And I blacked out and I puked, and the cops came, and it was horrible. And the next day on the bus, I threw up, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to do it again. But I did. I kept drinking. And I think for me, you know, and for many alcoholics, the whole thing is when you start, you can't stop, and you can't stop starting. I always fucking started again, even though I didn't want to.
At 11?
At 11. At 11. And then I had some trauma. So, I mean, shortly after that, you know, I'm navigating this world as someone who's just a raw nerve. I think I've said that to you before. It's like I felt like I was just exposed all the time. I felt everything. And I fell in love for the first time and went to we were both on the swim team together, and this person's friend, who was also on the swim team with us, had invited me to come over the day before. And so I went over to their house, and their older brother was the only one that was home. And he told me that my friend was in the basement and pulled me into the house and beat the shit out of me and threw me down these stairs and raped me. And I know, it was horrible.
Kyra.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of therapy, so I can talk about it now, but it was horrible. You know, in the work that I've done in the intervening years around rape, you know, I've mentored a lot of women who have been raped. And sometimes it's about sex, but mostly it's not. You know, mostly it's about control. Mostly it's about sort of a need to fill, you know, in AA we say a God-sized hole, but I think, you know, everybody's got something. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not clear on his intentions, but I do think that you have to be pretty fucked up to go there. And I imagine that something happened to him.
Stay present with me. I know it can be tough to
No,
talk,
it's okay.
but because this was such a monumental period in your life. You know, you go from having that first drink at 11 years old and throwing up, and then throwing up again, but you keep drinking because it fills that void.
Mm-hmm.
You are sexually, how old were you when you were
12.
sexually? You were 12 fucking years old.
Yeah, just a baby.
When it ended and you got out of there, how did you respond?
So before I left the house, he said, I'm not going to remember verbatim,
Sure.
but it was something along the lines of, that was terrible. You're horrible in bed, and I'm never going to tell
He
anyone.
fucking said that to you?
And I'm never going to tell anyone about this, and you better not either. And so I left feeling obviously like so violated and in pain, and I was like horrible. And I had this deep, intense shame. It was like, oh my God, I can't even like, A, what just happened, and B, I don't ever want to have sex. It was like this closing in. And then he rode the bus with me for years. He was on the bus with me, I think, for 2 or 3 more years every day, and would like make fun of me and talk shit to me and so I think that what I mostly took away, in addition to the world is not safe, men are not safe, my body is not safe. Also, I'm not good. And I'm never going to be good. And I think that was the thing that hurt more. I have had, over the years, I used drugs. So like as a kid using drugs, I was sexually assaulted. That was not the only time. Right. But I think that one hit in a way that it hit my spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
I know. And I didn't call the cops. I didn't tell anyone until I was 18. And I should have told my parents, right? Like that's the thing, is like I had the right parents for it. But I didn't. I told them that I fell off my bike, and that's why my face was all fucked up. And why I was limping home, it was like, so
just too ashamed to talk about
yeah, it was, I felt so much shame. And so I tried to kill myself a couple times. I started cutting and tried to kill myself. And my siblings, not all of them, but one of my siblings in particular was struggling at the time with drugs. Mm-hmm. And I had kind of been, even though I had a really good time drinking and had drank a couple times, I had like gone through DARE, the drug is addiction resistance education or whatever. And I was like, I'm never going to do drugs. But after this experience, I really had and in the midst of this experience, I had this feeling of just needing to not ever feel this again. And so I think that, there were years where I wondered, do I have an addiction problem, or did I use in order to deal with this trauma? And I think yes to both, right? Mm-hmm. It accelerated it, certainly. Like maybe I wouldn't have started using meth. I don't know. But man, when I start, I can't stop. And I always starting.
Because before any of this happened, you were already struggling with self-worth.
Yes.
Right? That's the whole reason why you drank the Jack Daniels.
Yes.
Right? And now it just, not only the consequences from that episode, you hate yourself even more, and you hate men more than maybe yourself. You talked about doing self-harm besides just drinking, cutting. What is that when you were cutting yourself like that? I guess that's just another way of saying I am worthless, so fuck it. And,
actually, no.
No.
Good guess, though.
Yeah.
I think there's probably some of that underneath. I think for me, at least, I had been, after I got out of, I was in Centennial Peaks, which is a hospital that treats people who have tried to kill themselves. So the second time I went to Centennial Peaks, I got out, and they recommended that I go to an inpatient drug treatment. And so I did. And when I was in this treatment center, I met someone else who cut. And she said, I have all this pain inside, and when I cut, I don't feel it anymore. Okay. And I was like, ooh, that sounds like what I want.
Yeah.
So it really was just a different angle at trying not to feel what was going on. And so when I would cut, it was like, not a dissociation necessarily. I'm like feeling my scars. It didn't help me dissociate, but it helped me kind of separate this internal turmoil, pain, nightmare from what I was actually experiencing. And I was desperate for attention. And I cut in a visible place, right? I cut on my upper arms, and I showed that I needed help, even though I didn't know what I needed.
And from there, the self-harm thoughts got even worse because now you're talking about suicide.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
So the first time was right after I was raped the first time, and it was a half-assed attempt, I'd say. I think that was mostly like I hadn't talked to my parents. I was still living at their house, and I needed them to know that I wasn't okay, but I didn't know how to tell them why. So I took like a bottle of ibuprofen. I like took them all, which is like not a good way to try to commit suicide. Like you just get liver failure, but then often you don't die. You just get like really sick. And then I told them. And so they brought me to the hospital, and I drank a shitload of charcoal. Horrible.
They give you that.
Yeah, horrible.
Yeah.
And then they sent me to Centennial Peaks. The second time I had my hands on better drugs. So it was in more earnest. And
How far apart?
So much of my adolescence is fuzzy in timing.
Yeah.
So I would say in the same year.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Sure.
I'm trying right now to write a memoir for my daughter so that she kind of knows me. And it's so funny, like trying to write about these years is really hard. I'm like, well, this thing happened and I have no idea what order it happened in. So I think it was within the same year. And again, I mean, it was hard. I think wanting to not exist and wanting to die aren't necessarily the same thing. And at the time, I wanted to not exist. I didn't want to have to feel. But it's not like I really wanted to be dead. But I was 12. So sorting that out on my own was hard.
That's a lot. That's some heavy shit you got to sort out on your own.
Yeah.
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 At any age.
Yeah, at any age.
Much less a 12-year-old who doesn't have the tools to of course you're going to drink. Of course you're going to get high.
Yeah.
My God, anything to make me not feel like this.
Yes.
And so when I got my hands on those drugs, I didn't let go.
Yes.
You will take these drugs, from my cold, dead hands,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because God damn it, I don't want to feel everything that's going on everywhere.
Yes. And I think there's similarities to that with the moment now, right? It's like a totally different kind of trauma, but I do think people are experiencing an everyday trauma right now that feels totally out of control and feels like we want to just not feel this. And so drugs are more appealing to the masses than they used to be. And I think I viscerally relate to that because I think it's so understandable to feel overwhelmed with how big we feel as humans and to not know what the fuck to do with it.
So the second suicide attempt involved kind of more drugs of your choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had just started using meth. Which I started using meth actually. I was in a treatment center and met a bunch of kids who were doing harder drugs. So that's how I started getting into harder drugs.
At treatment.
I was in treatment.
Terrific.
Yeah. LOL. So that is sort of how that began. And I had stolen a bunch of money from people in my community and had been asked to leave my parents' house, and frankly for good reason, right? Like it seems like callous to kick out a kid, but like I was totally out of control. I was completely out of control. They had called the cops on me for good reason because I had like forged a bunch of checks and like I was being insane. The cops came, I like screamed at the cops, and I was like completely out of control. So they with guidance from the treatment center I was in, asked me to move out. And I was staying with a girl, and the details there are irrelevant, but I was in her basement and I'd been doing rails of coke, and It was the middle of the night. It was close to Christmas. It was cold. And my mom didn't know where I was, and she's a warrior. She's always been a warrior. And I was coming down from doing all this coke, and I was sitting on the couch just crying, thinking about my mom and my life and this world and this place I was in and this sort of like, fuck, like, what am I doing? And I smoked some crack. I had just learned how to make crack. So I had smoked some crack. And then I don't know if you ever smoked crack, but like the right after crack is like, yeah. And I had this deep breath and was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't live anymore. And took a bunch of pills, more fun pills, painkillers primarily.
That's a dangerous combination.
Yeah.
Crack cocaine and downers.
Yes. It was like more intentional, certainly. And the gal who I was staying with's boyfriend woke up and found me passed out and brought me to the hospital. And I didn't die, clearly, because here I am. Mm. But it was, that one felt more like I was desperate. It wasn't like I was looking for help. It was like, I'm just desperate to not be doing this anymore.
So you've kind of graduated from, not wanting to be present, not wanting to be around, but not necessarily wanting to check out.
Yeah.
And the cries for help to now, I'm just checking out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a hell of a progression for a young kid to go through. My God.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough. And I think, there were then intervening years, I was in and out of treatment because I hadn't hit the bottom that I was willing to let be the bottom, and there are a lot of reasons for that. And I don't know if it matters, but I think at the time I didn't want to be using. I desperately wanted to be sober, but I couldn't do what that meant. I couldn't feel the stuff that actually meant. And so I just kept relapsing, and I went back in and out of treatment over and over. I went to multiple outpatients. I went to inpatients. I left the state. I went to jail. I went to hospitals. it was like just trying to figure it out. And there was a lot of trauma in there.
And you hit on something I think is a lot of people who have struggled in that area can relate to. I couldn't do what was required of me in sobriety. What do you mean by that? Like the soul searching kind of stuff, the recovery part of it?
Yeah, I think so. I think when I went through the steps a lot, and I still go through the steps. I'm not in AA, but I do still do that work. And I think like there was a certain level I could get to, but what was underneath all of that was what I actually needed to scratch. I needed to be able to sit with the despair and the fear and the collapsing of my ego and my sense of self. Even though I had just no self-worth, I've always been wildly overconfident. Like I can do anything. Yeah. I just believe that. It's like it's a flaw and a gift, right? And so there was this sense that I could always just do it. I couldn't surrender. I couldn't let go of my own need to excel, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And so it stopped me from being able to to let the grace come in, Yeah,
because for the folks who don't understand, like 12 steps require us to essentially give our control over to a higher power. And that can be tough for someone who is strong-willed, who has, even though, and it sounds so counterintuitive that I feel worthless, but I'm also awesome. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a strange feeling, but I get it because we're so fucked up. Yeah. But letting go of that, because that's all we've ever known is holding on tight to those reins, even though they've taken us to dark, dark places. It's the hell we know.
Yes. Yeah. It's the hell we know. And it's, I, it's, for me at least, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but I just always felt, I mean, since the rape and before that, it felt like the world was totally unsafe. I've never felt safe. And so the sense that I have to trust something else that I can't see, that I don't understand, to help me when nothing has ever been safe is like, that's insane. Don't do that. So I didn't for a long time. And I wasn't conscious, certainly. I wanted to be okay. And I saw other people getting okay and thought, I probably can do this, but I don't know why it's not taking for me.
And in the meantime, there was consequences. You mentioned you went to jail. How did that happen? What led to that?
So I had a few stints. Thankfully, I was a minor. So I was in the Arapahoe County Foot Center, which is a juvenile delinquent center. Delinquent. And the first couple of times it was general thefts. I was homeless, so I was just stealing everything. And I was using a lot of drugs, so I was just like, again, completely out of control. The last time I had stolen a car and had broken into a house and stolen a bunch of stuff from the house. And I was on meth, and I was driving on I-25 South, and I was super paranoid because I was in the stolen car, and I was in the slow lane. I was driving like 45. Yeah. I got pulled over I was driving too slow. That's how I got caught.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Meth is awful. Like, it's just
so bad. It's so bad. So I got pulled over. I had all these drugs on me, which I put into me, and was arrested, and went and was like, they're like, okay, well, now you have to stay. You've had too many. This is like, clearly you're a menace to society. And so got arrested, got caught eventually with the drugs because I was trying to use them while I was in jail, which you can't do that. There's like people and cameras and things. It's like, don't be an idiot. So it's like, I was so dumb. I was so bad at being bad. You know what I mean? Like, some people are like really like good criminals. I was such a bad criminal. And so I got a bunch of charges. I got a bunch of charges. And I think, I mentioned this before in the last time that we talked about this, but I think like what I learned then really for the first time was about the insidiousness of racism. It was like, I was given a lot of opportunity there.
White girl.
They gave me a therapist, came in, they started AA meetings. They were like doing art therapy. I have my record expunged. I have no criminal record. I was given every opportunity to succeed. And instead of being charged as an adult and going to jail, I was sent to an inpatient program. And I had people advocating for me, but from the previous rehabs and et cetera. But it was like, I couldn't have been given more on a gold platter to try to recover. And I was one of the only white girls in the Foot. And the black girls, mostly black, some Latina, had done way less, like caught with marijuana, and are not getting help and are not being given a hand up. And and so I think it was almost the first time where I really saw so starkly how not just inequitable, but like truly unconscionable our systems are for people who don't look like me. And I had a girlfriend who was in jail with me, who was black, who spent a lot of time teaching me, man. She like whipped me into shape. Like, she taught me about her life experience in a way that changed me. And I think, when I finally did get sober, it was, my bones were changed, I could see things in a way that it's funny. I was trying to talk about this the other day in a totally different lens, but like, because what we were talking about was economic and societal collapse and like modernity in general. And I'm not going to get into that here because unless you want to, but like the sense that so much of what we see and believe and experience are just conditioning. It's only conditioning, and we've been conditioned to live in capitalism, and so therefore we see things through that lens. And I think that's true of all of our lenses. And when I left jail, my lenses were changed in a way that was so fundamental and so intense that I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't go back. And it's good, you know, like I think I've been able to be a fighter in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise, looking like this, because of that.
So that girl had a profound impact on you.
Yes.
For the better. What was it about her experiences that you took away such a profound effect? Like, what did she say to you?
You know, I think a lot of it was she was in jail. Her I want to be careful because I have talked about her such that some people know who it is. So her family life was complicated and violent. And the way that the systems dealt with that was brutal. And not how they would have dealt with it had it been my lived experience. And so she made decisions about her life and took actions to keep her siblings that she ended up having to raise alive. And she made decisions that she had to make. And some of them were not illegal, but were questionable. And some of them were. And she got caught, and her siblings are in foster care. And it was like instantly a nightmare. She went to jail. Siblings are in foster care.
Never had a chance.
Never had a chance. And I think, externally that was the story, but then also getting to know her and getting to know how she felt and how she saw the world and how she saw police and how she saw, like the things that I had previously never examined at all because I haven't had to, because I've had the privilege of not having to tell my child to be careful, to put their hands up when they get pulled over. Like I don't have to do that. But I do, to be clear now.
Sure.
But I think it's like the conversation that we previously had about people who are making policy about addiction, who don't have experience with addiction, even if they're well-meaning, often miss the mark a little bit. And I think it's true across the board. If you don't viscerally feel the experience of another person and another lived experience, it's really hard to know what it actually feels like to have a totally different lens. And as a white woman, as a skinny white woman who is like standardly pretty in America, I didn't have to grapple with anything. I didn't.
I mean, we see it today if opioid epidemic impacting white suburban kids.
Now people care.
People care. Crack epidemic, 1980s, black neighborhoods, fuck them.
Yep.
So you were then able to be exposed to these experiences really for the first time. And you emerged from that a different person.
I did. Yes. And I, when I got sober, I didn't get sober right away. I got out. I went to inpatient. I came back. I had an ankle monitor. I moved back in with my parents for a short time. And I think not very long after that, I relapsed and I failed a UA. And I was back I can't remember if I was back in jail or if my probation officer, I don't remember what happened. My parents would probably remember. And so it took a little while it took a couple more years before I actually got sober. And some of those were hard. I moved up to the mountains and it was a mixed bag. But I eventually got to the place where I was ready to choose a bottom. You know, I hadn't, in AA at least, we talk about like hitting rock bottom, hitting the bottom that then gives you the willingness to do the rest of the work. And I had hit way worse bottoms, but for whatever reason, I woke up, and there's a lot of reasons, but I think they're irrelevant. Like I finally had the willingness to surrender. I finally had the grace that entered and said, it's time.
I'm done.
This is it. Like, you're going to die. And now you don't want to. So it's time. And so I moved back in with my folks, and I eventually started going to school. I had graduated online, the first online high school. So I had a diploma, but I didn't actually learn anything in high school. I was like doing drugs the whole time. So
yeah, join the club.
Yeah, right. So like I don't know why they gave me a diploma. And so I went to Metro. I think we're also
yes, we are. Go Rowdy.
Go Rowdy. And honestly, it was like the best possible education. There were small class sizes. I dug into things that I really cared about. I learned to love to learn for the first time. I had like my mind was totally blown open. And underneath all of that was this sense that the way we're doing life in this country is fucked up. And we need people to be making a lot of noise and doing a lot of stuff to change it. And so it was sort of the mission already. It was like, as soon as I had clear eyes, I had a heart that was ready to like fuck with the system.
You had purpose. Yeah. You finally have purpose.
Yes.
First of all, Metropolitan State University of Denver, God bless them.
The best.
I went, there wasn't, I had a sparkling D average GPA when I was in high school. So, CU said no.
Yeah, hard pass. Yeah.
Like, no, we're good, Vic. We're good. Yeah. And good old MSU said, come on over.
Yes.
And thank God those little, diversity, the 30 to a class, the being in the middle of a vibrant city was huge, especially as I was a young gay kid in the closet in Longmont. Thank goodness for Metropolitan State University of Denver.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you found it, and that that was your base for finding purpose.
Yes.
And because that's not easy to go from that transition of feeling worthless, I'm going to keep, doing the same old things because I'm used to this terrible life I'm living, to all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. Mm-hmm. We just got to give ourselves that opportunity for it to happen.
Yeah. And we sort of need, like, at least for me, like, I needed a gentle place to land. I think, like, one of the things that's so hard about the conversations right now around homelessness specifically, and addiction within homelessness, is that when we're trying to address really complex problems, which is what everyone who is dealing with addiction have, or anyone that's dealing with homelessness have, or anyone that's dealing with behavioral health and mental health issues have. Like, this is complexity. There's not any two people that are experiencing exactly the same thing. And to not give people even a modicum of a place to surrender into, it's like cruelty. I needed desperately to have at least some sense of, this is going to be safe enough for you to try.
Yes.
And we need to build that. That needs to be part of the culture, and it just isn't.
I mean, that feeling. I'm going to use my dog as a metaphor, and this may sound crazy, but like when the thunderstorm clouds emerge and it gets dark, she gets really scared.
Yeah.
And her little safety zone is the bathroom, enclosed like a cave, like a den, right?
Yes.
And she's perfectly content just being there. I give her a little treat. She's like, thanks, Dad. I'm just hanging out in the bathroom. Like, she has a safe harbor.
Yes.
That we, for so long, when we're running and gunning and living this tough lifestyle, there was no safety, especially for you, as you talked about so, tragically. But giving people that place where they feel safe, and there's some love, and there's opportunity and no judgment. And we can say, I know you've had a rough life so far, but how about we do something today?
Yes.
To make us better just today. And then to say, repeat tomorrow, right?
Yes. Or just this moment.
Moment.
Sometimes it's like one moment at a time. It's like, okay, maybe I can make it through the day, but I cannot fucking think about 12 hours.
Yeah, there was a guy. I was at because I don't go to 12-step meetings as much as I used to. It's not a lot, but I went to a meeting and there was a guy there who he picked up a white chip for newcomers, but he had picked up many, many, many white chips over the years, and he kind of was beating himself up. Like, I just picked up another white chip, and like, I'm a piece of shit and all this. You beat yourself up so
Oh,
badly with this disease. It's a disease.
yes.
And I told him afterwards, I'm like, man, how about instead of beating yourself up for these white chips you're collecting, be fucking proud of the fact that you haven't given up on yourself and
Yes.
that there is something inside of you that makes you want to continue to come and get these chips, and be proud of the fact that you're here today.
Yes.
This shit is hard.
Yes. And like a continued willingness is more than most have, right? Like the
Yeah.
amount of people who I love who have died because of this addiction is like I've got fewer fingers and toes, right? Like it's a lot of people. And if they had been able to pick up another chip, they might still be alive. Like we just have to keep fucking trying. Like relapse is just part of it. We just have to keep trying.
How did you get through those initial months, even initial years of, because the triggers will happen. The fuckets. We get a case of the fuckets. You get a case of the fuckets, you end up dead because you end up doing drugs again, right? Like, what was it that you learned in recovery that I can be okay with these triggers. I can actually avoid, I can do this today.
Yeah.
Do you remember when that kind of started happening?
Kind of. I mean, I think I'd had periods of sobriety throughout my adolescence. So there was, I kind of had the routine for the beginning down, like go to at least 90 meetings in 90 days. But like I was going to meetings all the fucking time. I was spending time only with addicts. I was like doing the steps aggressively. As soon as I would finish the 12, I would start again. I was going to therapy. I was doing yoga. I was doing
That's
somatic
great.
practice. It was like I finally had the willingness to like let this be the thing I did. I think for me, it wasn't as hard because I had that structure and I had the privilege of not having a job because I was like a homeless bum. I use bum lovingly toward myself
Yes.
only. Yes. Most people don't have that. So I think
Yeah.
it's not as easy for a lot of people if you're a grown up who has a job and needs to like be an adult.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do that. I think what was harder was after that, after the period of like, okay, I've got 90 days and now I have to work and I have to like be in relationship with other human beings. And
Oh, that's so hard.
so
That's so fucking
hard.
hard, man. I
Yeah.
felt like such an alien.
Yeah.
Like, I remember going on a date for the first time sober, and it's like, so how about this
Yeah,
weather?
this
Like,
was
what
awkward.
am I, when I'm so used to being sloshed. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's hard. And I think like for me as a woman, as a young woman in AA, I got sober when I was 20. I'm 35 now. It was not all that safe. Women's meetings were good. Mixed meetings, even young people meetings, were not that safe for a young woman. And so like trying to sort out how to have my needs met, which were like, give me all the attention and love me, and someone love me, please love me. Um, that was dangerous in the rooms of
Yeah.
AA. And so I think like it took a number of years before I had a real good sense of how to deal with the day-to-day stuff and not dissociate or not feel like I wanted to drink or not, and honestly, it was good sponsorship. Like I had really good sponsors. And I had really good teachers of other faiths. So I had a teacher for a while who was he himself was Lakota, and he was in AA, and he invited me because of a friend who was studying under him to join his lodges. So he did sweat lodges every Sunday, and
Oh,
I for a long time, for years, I went to lodges every Sunday, and I had this like very deep spiritual experience in a tradition that is with the earth and that feels real and that feels grounded, and so I was given those kinds of privileges. I had a really good meditation teacher. I was in the Shambhala Buddhist tradition for a while. I had a really good meditation teacher. I have had some really bad, but also really good therapists. So I think I've been really lucky in that the spiritual potential has been opened to me by a lot of people. And I ask for mentorship. I meet a person that I'm like, ooh, there's something in you. I'm like, hi, I'm obsessed with you.
Good for
Teach me
you.
your ways.
Good for you. That's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
good
got
for
to be
you.
really confident.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's how it happened. I think that's like, I had some really good teachers that helped me when I felt like I want to check out, or I want to drink, or I want to use, or I want to have random unfulfilling sex with a stranger. Like, I had someone to be like, cool, I feel that. Why don't you try this other thing first and see if
Yeah.
it works before you go do that bad choice?
That's so right. And good for you, because it's like I tell newcomers, I'm like, if you are in a meeting and you hear someone say something that profoundly touches you, go up to them and talk to them and say to yourself immediately, I want what that guy has.
Yes.
He's speaking to me, and I'm going to go approach him. And I mean, that's what the rooms are all about.
Yeah.
And so I'm so glad you were able to do that, especially with men.
Yeah.
Was that hard initially because you had such terrible experiences with men before that? Like, how long did it take you to actually, okay, men aren't so bad, even though, how long did that take?
It's still a process.
Still a process.
Yeah, I'm married to a man who has helped a lot. Before Chris, I would say I pretty much did not trust men at all. And most of my male friends over my life have tried to have sex with me. And so it's always been sort of like this isn't friendship. So I think until I met him, I basically was like, you guys are the worst. Like, I can't with you. And like, look at the world that you've been running.
Yeah, that too.
But I
Yes.
think since, in the last, 8 years, 7 years, however long it's been, my relationship has really healed a lot of that. And I think, it's funny, like, I'm going to say this, and also I wanted to laugh first because it really is like not all men, right? Like these white dudes are like, not all men are bad, but it really is true. Like, I think people are conditioned, and men are conditioned in a different way than women are in this country. And so, it's true that many are unsafe, but not everybody. And I think as I have healed some of that, it has gotten easier to be in relationship with men. And yet I still live a life where when I am by myself or with my child, I know which men are around me, and I know where they are, and I know how I can get away from them. And so it's not like I'm better. It's not like I'm healed. It's not like I'm like trusting of the world, but I can function, and I have good relationships with men, and I have a husband who I love. And, so I think that one's probably going to be a lifelong practice.
And you still have us gay men, honey.
Oh my God, I know. There's a lot of gay men in my life who I love and trust.
The gays will take care of
gays
you.
will take care of me.
We'll watch Golden Girls.
Yes.
We'll go to brunch.
Yes.
You talked about how you were writing a memoir for your daughter, which just melts me. That is just, wow, what a great idea. Writing it for her and knowing everything that you went through, and the last thing you want is for her to go through anything that you went through. What's that experience been like for you?
Man, it is a weird time to be a parent. I think it's always hard to parent, but I think right now it's really fucking hard to be a parent. I think the first piece that you asked about with the memoir, part of My daughter's really curious. She's got a really curious spirit, and she's curious about us. She asks us to tell lots of stories about our lives to her, and we do. And she's she puts things together in ways that are probably very human. It's just that I've never had a kid before. She's about to be 4. And it feels like she's a whole person. I mean, she is a whole person. She's like an adult person sometimes. And so I think there are things that I want to make sure she knows I felt. You know, part of what was hard for me as a kid was that I felt so much, and I didn't have anyone validating that this is just humanness, that it's okay to feel anything that you feel, and it's okay to act on those feelings as long as you're not harming others. And it's okay, you know, kind of trying to help her understand what the human experience is. And I'm in this book for her, which will only be for her, trying to communicate the ways that I made choices based on those feelings that could have been different choices. And what those options could have been, and why I didn't understand them, and give her a sense of what is happening inside of me and what happened inside of me at my worst, so that even if she does have addiction problems, even if she does experience violence, even if the climate collapses and we're all living in tents or whatever, you know, she at least has a sense of tools that are available that I didn't have. And knows that I'm always a safe place, and that no matter what she comes to me with, I have felt it, and I am here for it, and I am eager to be her partner in whatever it is. So that's the hope.
That's beautiful.
But it's hard, man. It's really hard. You know, she's asking us questions. You know, we're a political family. We talk about politics. So she's asking us questions about Trump. She's asking us, the other day, she's asking me about Nazis, and I'm like, fuck, like,
Wow.
You're 4. Like, what's the line? And also, like, you should know this world that you're walking into. And I didn't. You know, I had to learn about the reality of this world as an adult. And it would have been, I could have done different kind of good early on had I known more. So we're trying to find that balance, but it's hard.
Yeah, because you don't want them living in fear all the time, right? You want them to be a kid and, you know, eat ice cream. And when are you going to give her the book to read? Have you figured that out yet?
It kind of depends on how it comes together.
Yeah.
I think, you know, there are a couple places where, especially the violent pieces, I haven't decided how I want to tell the stories. I've written them out, but I'm not sold on them yet. And I don't want her to read that until she's older. Yeah. But also, you don't want to wait too long. I don't know. I have this feeling that I'll just know, but we'll see.
I think you'll just know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess lastly, you know, it may sound like a really corny question, but I'm so sincere when I ask it. Like, what would you say to your former self, right? What would you say to that scared 11-year-old girl that was about to enter a really dark place?
I don't think that's a corny question. And it's funny, I haven't thought about that. I have done a lot of like inner parenting work. And so I know what I would say in some situations.
With the soundtrack of my dog slurping up water.
Hi, baby, come here.
Ryder has been a presence today, folks.
I love her.
She's like, I know they're talking about heavy shit, but I'm drinking this water.
Look how cute I am. You don't have to worry about anything.
Oh, yes, good girl. Good girl.
I think, you know, like my instant jump is I wanted to know that I wasn't alone. I wanted to know that what I was experiencing was humanness and not just something that I all by myself had. So I think there's something there, but I was alone. So I don't, you know, it's not because I didn't have people around me, but just because I was experiencing things that the people around me hadn't experienced. And so, like, dealing with the trauma of rape as a child, I was sort of by myself. So I think, like, if I had the opportunity to get to know that girl now, it wouldn't be an easy, here's what I'd say. It would be I will love the fuck out of you no matter what, and I'm going to be here for it no matter what.
Yeah.
And you can fuck up, and you can make mistakes, and you can be an asshole, and you can rage at me, and you can whatever, and I'm going to just stay. Because I think that's what we all need is knowing that we're allowed to be human, and that doesn't make us unlovable. And in fact, the things that are most human about us, are most messy about us, are what make us like compelling creatures. You know, like the only reason that I'm a like fun person to have at the party is because I've had a weird fucking life. So I've got a lot of, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think it's like what makes us cool.
I agree.
And so I think it would be something around that. This like, you don't have to be anything other than what you are, baby girl.
That's great. You're a fighter, Kyra deGruy Kennedy. I thank you so much for talking to me about your amazing life and your resilience. And God love you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Love you,
Thank you
Vic.
for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right. Great job. That was terrific.